A very obvious outcome of the meeting is simply that the meeting itself is seen to take place. So, the idea that there is sort of European solidarity going on between the major European powers, important that the UK is part of that. So it's not just EU states, but it is actually the sort of major European NATO states. So the very act of consulting is intended to send a message.
Помало, лише обережно. Ручка.
An optimistic take is to say, yeah, sure, the Americans are perfectly welcome to conduct bilateral diplomacy with whoever they want to, and they always have done. And if they see value in cooperating with the Russians on certain matters, as they have done throughout the course of the war, not always in the forefront, but in the background, continuing to keep diplomacy going, then fine. That's the sort of perhaps glass half full read on what's going on. But I think in particular, there will be some very significant alarm in European capitals about what might be discussed with regards to the security of their continent, their home region.
Eastern Europe in conflict just a couple years down the road. So we had a number of good conversations about how we might accomplish that together, and certainly we'll have many more in the days, weeks, and months to come. President Zelensky.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Very briefly, I think Vice President said everything and absolutely correct. We are very thankful for American support. President Trump, we have good conversation today.
Come to the table with Putin. If Ukraine is not ready to speak with Putin at the table, how do you move?
One sort of potentially really bad outcome for European capitals is to discover that the Americans have basically put them on the hook for attempting to do some sort of peacekeeping mission in Ukraine or whatever, without their say-so, effectively sort of presenting them with a fait accompli type scenario where they either then have to fulfill or deliver on what the Americans have said they'll do, or end up then having to kind of say, no, we won't do that, and some sort of agreement over Ukraine collapses in acrimony, and the Americans can point at the Europeans and say, well, this is all your fault, you wouldn't deliver. The Europeans could just decide to exercise more strategic autonomy. If they were willing to spend more on their own defense, they wouldn't have to be so dependent on the US position. The European alarm and the sort of European dilemma is largely a product of many decades of accumulated sort of free riding, choosing to or preferring to get spend on domestic goods, sort of welfare, sort of other aspects of the domestic economy rather than defense. The British position is a hope that by them sort of saying this and moving early, it will help to drag similar European commitments in as well. The UK is not in a military position to issue a guarantee like this by itself. It might not even be in a position to issue such a guarantee either with allies, because it could be a very substantial undertaking. But certainly the hope that by giving a guarantee like that early, or saying the UK would take that position early, that it will help to pull in commitments from other big and rich, but perhaps more hesitant European countries, in particular like Germany. Okay, well, let's say we were to send a peacekeeping commitment to Ukraine or some sort of contingent to Ukraine. Does that make Russia less likely to actually give any kind of ceasefire in the first place? if the deal is, the moment you stop fighting, NATO troops will be in Ukraine, then that actually reduces Russia's incentive to stop fighting.